2 days after my grandfather's funeral, I was elbow-deep in a cardboard grave of his life when I found a box labeled World War II relics. The house smelled of cedar and old sweat. Every drawer I opened sighed with years. Outside, rain scratched the windows like fingernails. Inside was a uniform too precise, smelling faintly of metal and something like rusted leather. Buttons glinted like tiny suns. Beneath the jacket lay photographs. My grandfather, laughing under sunlight, arms slung around a man whose face was a hard suggestion in faded paper. Hitler. The photographs made a noise inside me that I couldn't name. I read the first page and then another, because horror is a tide, and once pulled, you cannot stop the water from coming. Log 78. Lately, me and Elias have had very private missions. We met Hitler at the airport, no windows, pitch black. He briefed us on a project. We were told to come back for more. Log 95. They found a hole in Antarctica. A hole into the center of the Earth. Trains. Hollow space. Technology beyond comprehension. Antimatter bombs. Black hole lasers. We were shown the base. I have never seen so much power. The handwriting trembled here, like someone breathing too fast in a closed room. I read on because comprehension feels like control, and because if I understood what he had seen, maybe I could shrink it, put it in a jar, and screw the lid on. Log 113, April 18th. We followed Hitler to the German islands, then to Antarctica. There is a hole, huge train tracks into the deep. The Nazis have built a base below. I could hardly speak for awe. The room tilted. The attic's dim light had sharpened into a tunnel focused on a single impossibility. My grandfather, the bread maker, the man who had tucked me in when thunder knocked at the window, stood smiling with a demon engineer. Log 183. We were rushed to Berlin. Hitler said there was no hope for Europe. He was leaving for Antarctica. An imposter was placed. A general shot him in the head. I hid for 2 weeks. Elias was caught. I left for America. I visited his grave and said I was sorry. I burned everything. I thought that would end it. I was wrong. My thumb left a smear on the ink. My family's laughter downstairs blurred into something like the ocean's steady threat. The journal's last lines were a scrawl that looped into a signature I half recognized before the blood in my ears told me why. My grandfather's name, written with the same hand that had once steadied mine. He had written of a hole in the earth where men build something monstrous, a place where the defeated could reinvent themselves beyond all law, beyond all reckoning. He had written of weapons with names like nightmares. He had written of a substitution, their leader dead in the papers, while the man who had led humanity's worst hour kept a place to return to. I left the box in the attic and did what my grandfather had been too ashamed to do. I burned the pages that implicated him in name and detail, and I kept the photographs. Part of me wanted the world to unknow it. Part of me wanted the world to know and to be prepared. That night, I bought a generator and read everything else in the house by flashlight until the battery was dim. Sleep was narrow and ragged. My wife, Maya, took my hand and asked what was wrong. I lied in a small voice and said the grief was heavier than I expected. She is the kind of woman who knows when you ask to be lied to. She kissed my knuckles and said the house would settle. There are lies we tell for love, and lies we tell to carry the heat of inevitable things alone. The journal made me a kneeling thing. When I tried to explain to my cousins, the photos looked like a trick of light. They shrugged and fed each other explanations. Soldiers sell uniforms. Histories get distorted. I should have put it away. Instead, I started planning. I hired a company to reinforce a cellar and had them install a steel door that hummed quietly when I closed it. The contractors were young men who laughed easily, who watched me with the polite curiosity reserved for patrons with eccentric orders. They took their check and offered banal consolations. They went home. The rain kept scratching at the house. The fear was not of a man named Hitler, red and snarling in a textbook. It was of a possibility that somewhere in a hollow under old ice, men had escaped justice and bided their time. The horror was not the photos. It was that the man who had told me how to catch a fish while the sun was soft had also worn those buttons. It was the thought that kindness and cruelty can be sewn into the same sleeve. On the third night, I found myself waking to a sound like distant digging or trains. For a moment, I believed the attic was speaking, the house settling around a truth. I told myself it was the pipes, the town, the old radiator's complaint. I kept the journal hidden. I kept my mouth shut. I kept the cellar door locked. Inside me, something old moved. Not my grandfather's past, not Hitler's shadow exactly, but a small voice that said, "If they are in the dark, you will be safe if you hide." Another voice, softer and crueler, answered, "Avoiding the world does not unmake what exists under it." Maybe the journal was fiction, a fevered soldier's memoir stitched to campfire lore. Maybe the whole never existed, yet the photographs would not be placated by reason. My grandfather's handwriting refused to be explained away by my memory of his bread. That night, as rain made a slow percussion on the roof, I lay awake, imagining trains deep in the ice and men with patience like root systems.